The crystal flutes clinked as my husband of 10 years raised his glass to address our anniversary party guests. I should have known something was wrong when he insisted on giving the first toast. My name is Willow, and this is the story of how I orchestrated the perfect revenge against the man who thought he could destroy me. Friends, family, Melvin's voice carried across the marble-floored ballroom of our estate. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate what has been. He paused, his practiced smile never reaching his eyes. An educational decade. I maintained my pleasant expression even as I noticed his sister Harmony smirking from her seat. The champagne in my hand was Dom Perignon, his favourite. He'd always said it was too expensive when I wanted to buy it. Marriage teaches us many things, he continued, loosening his bow tie. It teaches us about growth, about change, about knowing when to move forward. His gaze shifted to the corner of the room where his assistant Brianna stood, wearing a dress that cost more than her monthly salary. The air grew thick with anticipation. Summer, my mother-in-law, dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, but I caught the slight upturn of her lips, which is why tonight I'm announcing some changes. Melvin turned to face me directly. Willow, you've been adequate, but it's time we both admitted this marriage has served its purpose. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Our mutual friend Knox choked on his drink. Brianna and I have decided to build a future together, Melvin declared, reaching out his hand. She practically floated to his side, beaming. She understands my vision for the company. She's younger, more ambitious. More fertile, Harmony stage whispered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. I rose slowly from my seat, smoothing my navy silk dress. The room fell silent, everyone waiting for tears, screams, perhaps a scene worthy of reality television. Instead, I smiled. A toast, I said, my voice steady, to new beginnings. Melvin's triumphant expression faltered slightly. He'd expected hysteria, begging, anything but this calm. To the man who taught me that everything has a price, I continued, raising my glass, and to his new beginning with his assistant, who I'm sure will be fascinated to learn about his vasectomy 3 years ago. Brianna's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Willow, Melvin warned, his face reddening. Oh, I'm not finished. I took a deliberate sip. To the Kent family, who never thought I belonged in their world. You were right. I don't belong in your world. You belong in mine. Summer stood up sharply. That's enough. Is it? I asked softly. Because I think 10 years of condescension, manipulation and theft deserve a proper send-off, don't you? Theft? Knox asked, looking between us. Sir Melvin, darling, I purred, why don't you tell everyone about the offshore accounts? Or should I ask Brianna, since they're in her name? The colour drained from my husband's face. You're delusional, he sputtered. Security! I laughed then, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. Security? In my house? Our house, he corrected automatically. Check again. I placed my empty glass on the table. Check everything, actually. The house, the cars, the company, even that lovely watch you're wearing. I've been very busy these past few months. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by fear. What did you do? I learned from the best, I replied, walking toward the exit. You taught me to take what I want, so I did. I paused at the doorway, turning back to address our stunned guests. The party's over. Please see yourselves out, all of you. And Melvin, don't bother going to the office tomorrow. Your key card won't work. You can't do this, Harmony shrieked, but I was already walking away. Behind me, chaos erupted. I heard glass breaking, accusations flying, Brianna's high-pitched denials about the accounts. But I didn't look back. My heels clicked steadily down the marble hallway, each step taking me closer to freedom. That night, he left thinking he'd humiliated me. What he didn't know was that the house he stood in, the champagne he drank, the business logo behind him, all belonged to me. And starting tomorrow, he'd learn what it means to lose absolutely everything. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Ernest, my lawyer. "It's done. Start the proceedings." His reply came instantly. "Everything's ready. Are you sure about this?" I smiled as I stepped into the warm night air. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The game was set, and I had all the pieces. 3 months earlier, I sat in my home office staring at a single strand of long blonde hair on Melvin's navy suit jacket. I wasn't blonde. Neither was anyone in our household staff. My phone buzzed. Another text from Melvin. "Late meeting. Don't wait up." I opened my laptop and pulled up our shared calendar. 3rd late meeting this week. I clicked through to our joint credit card statements. Expensive dinners at places we'd never been together. Hotel charges in the middle of alleged business trips. The signs had been there for months, maybe years. But that blonde hair was my tipping point. I dialed a number I'd kept buried in my contacts under tax services. Ernest Wolfe speaking. "It's Willow. I need your help." Silence stretched across the line. Ernest had been the Kent family's accountant until Summer forced him out 3 years ago, claiming he was too interested in their private affairs. What she really meant was that he'd questioned their creative bookkeeping. "I was wondering when you'd call," he said finally. 2 hours later, I sat across from him in a private room at a downtown cafe, sliding a USB drive across the table. "Everything I could access is there," I said. "Bank statements, property deeds, company documents." Ernest plugged the drive into his laptop, his expression growing darker as he scrolled. "He's been moving money around, large sums." "To where?" "Multiple accounts, some offshore." He looked up. "When did you first notice?" "The transfers? About 6 months ago, but I think it started before that." I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup. I need to know what I'm dealing with before I make my move. Ernest leaned back, studying me. "What exactly are you planning, Willow?" "I want everything he has, everything we built together that he's trying to steal." I met his gaze. "And I want to make sure he never recovers." "That's not just divorce territory. What you're suggesting—" He lowered his voice. "If he's committing fraud, this becomes criminal." "Good." Ernest closed his laptop. "I know someone, Levi, former forensic accountant. He can help us trace the money." He hesitated. "But Willow, what you're planning, once it starts, there's no taking it back." "I know." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken that morning, Melvin kissing Brianna in his car, parked 2 blocks from our office. He made his choice. Now I'm making mine. Over the next week, Ernest and Levi dug deeper. The picture they uncovered was worse than I'd imagined. "He's been siphoning company profits through shell corporations," Levi explained, spreading documents across Ernest's desk, then moving them through a series of accounts before they land here. He pointed to a statement. "Under Brianna's name." "How much?" I asked. "Nearly 2 million so far." I laughed hollowly. "The company I helped him build, the clients I brought in, he's stealing it all for his mistress." "There's more," Ernest said quietly. "The property transfers, the new business registrations, they're all structured to cut you out. He's been planning this for at least a year." My hands shook as I picked up the papers. "Can we prove it?" "Yes, but proving it isn't enough." Ernest's eyes met mine. "You need to act first." "What do you mean?" "Right now, he thinks you're oblivious. Use that." Ernest pulled out a legal pad. "We can start moving assets, restructuring ownership, but you'll have to play along. Act normal. Can you do that?" I thought about every fake smile, every condescending pat on the head from his family, every time I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace. I've been acting normal for 10 years, I said. What's a few more months? That night, I went home and cooked Melvin's favourite dinner. I listened to his lies about his late meeting. I kissed him goodnight and waited until his breathing evened out in sleep. Then I slipped into his study and photographed every document in his private safe. The combination was my birthday, the one thing he'd never bothered to change. My phone buzzed with a text from Ernest. "Started the paperwork. No going back now." I looked at Melvin's sleeping form and typed back, "Good. He wants to play games. Let's show him how it's done." Another buzz. "Be careful. The Kents are powerful enemies to make." I smiled in the darkness. They're about to learn that quiet wives make the most dangerous opponents. I slipped back into bed, my mind already racing with plans. Melvin stirred slightly. "Everything okay?" he mumbled. "Everything's perfect," I whispered. "Just perfect." He had no idea that while he dreamed of his future with Brianna, I was carefully dismantling every piece of the life he thought was his. The game was just beginning, and I intended to win. "When are you two finally going to give us grandchildren?" Summer's question cut through the Sunday dinner conversation like a knife. "Brianna, dear, pass the salt." I watched as Melvin's assistant, invited to our weekly family dinner for the 3rd time this month, reached across me to hand the salt shaker to my mother-in-law. Her wedding ring finger was bare, but there was a faint tan line where a ring had recently been. "Mother," Melvin cleared his throat, "we've discussed this." "Well, I just think at Willow's age," Harmony chimed in, swirling her wine. "Tick-tock, right?" I speared a piece of asparagus with my fork. "How thoughtful of you to worry about my biological clock, Harmony. How's the divorce going?" Silence fell over the table. Harmony's face turned red. "That was uncalled for," Summer snapped. "Was it?" I smiled sweetly. I thought we were sharing family concerns. Under the table my phone buzzed. A text from Levi. "Found something big. Meet tonight." "Speaking of family business," Melvin interrupted, "Brianna's been doing exceptional work at the office. I'm thinking of making her head of client relations." My position. Well, my former position before he'd convinced me to step back and focus on our future family. "That's wonderful news," Summer beamed. "Finally, someone with fresh energy in that role." I typed back to Levi, "Can't tonight, still playing Happy Families. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. "Willow," Brianna's voice dripped with fake sympathy, "I hope you don't feel replaced. I know how much the company means to you." "Not at all," I replied, watching her hand brush Melvin's arm. "I'm sure you'll bring something special to the position." Later that night, I sat in our home office, reviewing the documents Ernest had prepared. Property transfers, power of attorney forms, new company registrations, all waiting for Melvin's signature. "Working late?" Melvin appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. "Just some charity board paperwork." I closed the laptop. "You know how it is." He crossed the room, placing his hands on my shoulders. "You work too hard on these little projects." I forced myself not to flinch at his touch. "Someone has to maintain our social obligations." "True." He squeezed my shoulders. "That's what makes us such a good team." The next morning, I met Levi at a coffee shop across town. "Look at this," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Offshore account in Brianna's name, but look who's been making the deposits." I opened the folder. Wire transfers, all from a company I'd never heard of. "It's a shell corporation," Levi explained. "Melvin's been transferring company funds through it for months. He's stealing what's yours." I smiled, closing the folder. "No, he's handing me the noose." "What do you mean?" "These transfers, they're traceable, right?" Levi nodded. "That's how I found them. And they're definitely unauthorized by the board. Completely illegal." I took a sip of my coffee. "Then we have him, but not yet. Let him keep going. Let him think he's winning." That evening, I attended a charity gala with Melvin. Brianna was there, hovering at the edges of conversations, playing her part. "Mrs. Kent," a board member's wife approached us. "I heard about the company's expansion plans. How exciting!" "Oh, I'm not really involved in the business anymore," I said, watching Melvin's satisfied smirk. "I leave all that to my brilliant husband." "And Brianna," Harmony appeared, champagne in hand. "She's been such an asset." "Speaking of assets," I turned to Melvin. "Darling, did you sign those papers I left on your desk for the charity foundation?" He waved dismissively. Yes, this morning." I excused myself to the powder room and pulled out my phone. "Ernest, did you get the confirmations?" His reply came quickly. "All signed, property transfers complete." He didn't even read them. I looked in the mirror, adjusting my pearls, a wedding gift from Summer. In the reflection, I could see Brianna laughing at something Melvin said, her hand resting on his arm. "Enjoy it while it lasts," I whispered. My phone buzzed again. "Levi. Found another transfer, bigger this time, $500K to the offshore account." I typed back, "Perfect. Let him dig his grave deeper." When I returned to the party, Melvin was giving a speech about family legacy and business success. I stood beside him, the perfect wife, smiling and nodding. "To the future," he raised his glass. "To getting exactly what we deserve," I added. He had no idea that every signature, every transfer, every lie was another step toward his own destruction, and I was just getting started. I stood outside my sister Mary's apartment, my hand hovering over the doorbell. 5 years of silence stretched between us like a chasm. But I needed her. Specifically, I needed what our grandmother had left her. The door opened before I could knock. "You look terrible," Mary said, leaning against the doorframe. "Hello to you, too." She studied me for a moment. "This isn't a social call, is it?" "No." I met her eyes. "I need access to Grandma's trust documents." Mary laughed sharply. "The same trust you said I was greedy for wanting to protect?" She stepped aside, letting me in. "Coffee?" Her apartment was smaller than I remembered, but warmer. Family photos covered one wall, including ones of us as children that I'd forgotten existed. "Melvin's stealing from me," I said, accepting the coffee mug she offered, "and he's sleeping with his assistant." "Shit," Mary sat across from me. "The perfect power couple isn't so perfect. I'm taking everything from him." I pulled out my phone, showing her Ernest documents. "But I need Grandma's property trust to close the loop, the one you manage." "The one you said was worthless?" Mary's voice was bitter. "The one you let Melvin talk you into signing away your rights to?" I was wrong. The words felt like glass in my throat. About everything. About you. Mary was quiet for a long moment. "Show me what you need." For the next hour, we pored over trust documents and property deeds. The trust, it turned out, had a connection to land that Melvin's new development project depended on. "If I sign this over to you," Mary said, holding the final paper, "what happens?" "His project falls apart, the investors pull out, and the money he's been hiding." I smiled. "It all comes to light." Mary picked up her pen. "Good." Back at Ernest's office, we finalized the transfers. "The shell companies are now under your sole control," Ernest explained, spreading papers across his desk. "The intellectual property rights, the client contracts, all yours." "What about the offshore accounts?" I asked. Levi spoke up from his corner. "Still in Brianna's name, but we've documented every transfer Melvin made. When this breaks, they're both going down." "Speaking of Melvin," Ernest turned his laptop toward me. "Look what I found." On the screen was a flight confirmation, 2 first-class tickets to the Maldives booked under Melvin and Brianna's names, 1 week after our upcoming anniversary. "Perfect," I said. "Let him pack light." That evening, I had dinner with Knox, carefully planting seeds of doubt about Melvin's business practices. "I'm worried about him," I confided, playing the concerned wife. "He's been so secretive about the finances lately." Knox frowned. "Now that you mention it, some of the recent deals have seemed odd." "I'm sure it's nothing," I said, watching the concern grow on his face. "Though, if you hear anything—" "I'll keep an eye out," he promised. Later that night, Melvin came home late again, reeking of Brianna's perfume. "How was your meeting?" I asked, not looking up from my book. "Productive." He loosened his tie. "We're close to closing the Riverside development deal." "Wonderful." I turned a page. "Did you need any signatures from me?" No. He waved dismissively. "I've handled everything." I smiled behind my book. If only he knew what those handled signatures had actually been for. My phone buzzed. A text from Mary. "Trust transfer complete. You now control the Riverside property access." "Coming to bed?" Melvin called from our room. "In a minute," I replied, typing back to Mary. "Thank you for everything." Her response came quickly. "Make him pay, then come visit. We have catching up to do." I changed into my nightgown and slipped into bed beside my husband, maintaining the facade for just a little longer. In less than a month, he would lose everything: his money, his reputation, his mistress, his family's respect. "I love you," he murmured, already half asleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking of the documents safely stored with Ernest, the property now in my name, the evidence of every lie and theft carefully documented. "I know," I whispered. My phone lit up one last time. Ernest. "Final papers filed. No going back now. Are you ready?" I looked at Melvin's sleeping form, remembering every dismissive comment, every secret meeting, every time he'd made me feel small. "Ready," I typed back. "Start the countdown." In 3 weeks he would stand in front of our friends and family, thinking he was about to humiliate me. Instead, he would discover just how badly he'd underestimated his quiet, supportive wife. I closed my eyes, finally allowing myself to smile. Sometimes revenge is best served not cold, but with meticulous precision and perfect timing. "I need space," I told Melvin over breakfast, exactly 1 week before our anniversary. "I'm going to stay at the lake house for a few days." He barely looked up from his phone. "Whatever you need, dear." I'd already packed my essential documents and irreplaceable items. The movers had secretly relocated my grandmother's antiques days ago. Everything was in position. "Don't forget about the anniversary party," he said as I headed for the door. "Mother's put a lot of effort into it." I'm sure she has, I thought, remembering Summer's smug smile during the planning meetings. At the lake house, I met with Ernest and Levi one final time. "Everything's in place," Ernest said, reviewing his checklist. "The company ownership transfer is complete. Properties are secured. All we need now is—" My phone rang. Knox's name flashed on the screen. "Willow?" His voice was urgent. "Did you know Melvin just took out a $2 million business loan against the company? He listed both your names." I put the phone on speaker. "When?" "This morning. Something about the Riverside development." Knox paused. "Look, as your friend, something feels off. He's been making weird moves." "Thank you, Knox. Keep this between us." After hanging up, I turned to Ernest. "He's getting desperate." "The Riverside project is falling apart," Levi confirmed, pulling up financial reports. "Without the property access Mary transferred to you, his investors are backing out." "And now he's taking out emergency loans," Ernest added, "using your name without consent." "Can we use this?" Ernest's smile was cold. "It's the final nail in his coffin." That afternoon, Harmony showed up unannounced at the lake house. "Running away won't save you," she said, barging in. "Melvin's told us everything, how you've been unstable, threatening to ruin him." I poured myself a glass of wine. "Would you like some?" This isn't a social call. She slammed her designer bag on my counter. We know you've been meeting with Ernest. Whatever you're planning, stop now. Or what? Or we'll destroy you. She leaned forward. The Kents protect their own. I took a slow sip. Funny, that's exactly what I'm doing too. What's that supposed to mean? You'll see. At the anniversary party. I walked to the door, holding it open. Give my love to your mother. After she left, I called Mary. They're getting nervous. Good, my sister replied. How's the lake house? Empty, like my marriage. I watched the sunset over the water. I never thanked you properly for helping me. Just promise me one thing, Mary said. When it's done, don't disappear again. That night, Ernest called with a warning. Melvin's lawyers are circling. They're trying to find weaknesses. Let them look, I said. Everything we've done is legal. He's the one who's been committing fraud. Still, Ernest's voice softened. Are you sure you want to go through with the public reveal? We could handle this quietly. I thought about years of public humiliation, of being patted on the head and told to know my place. No, he chose to make it public. So will I. The next day, I received flowers at the lake house from Brianna. The card read, I hope you find peace with what's coming. Change is hard. I photographed the card and sent it to Levi. Add it to the evidence file. 3 days before the anniversary party, Knox called again. Melvin's telling people you had a breakdown, that you're not well. Is he now? I checked my watch. Almost time for my meeting with the SEC investigators. How convenient. Willow, Knox hesitated. Whatever's really going on. Be careful. I hung up and grabbed my portfolio of evidence. Ernest was waiting in his car outside. Ready? He asked as I slid into the passenger seat. They think I'm having a breakdown, I said, checking my lipstick in the mirror. Let's show them what a breakdown really looks like. The meeting with the investigators took 2 hours. When we emerged, Ernest was grinning. They're opening a formal investigation, he confirmed. The timing couldn't be better. My phone buzzed. A text from Melvin. Coming home soon? We need to discuss the party. Not yet, I replied, still finding my peace. Ernest touched my arm. Last chance to back out. I looked at him, this man who'd become my unexpected ally. You know what they say about revenge being best served cold? He nodded. I prefer it served in front of witnesses, I said, with absolutely perfect timing. 3 days. In 3 days, Melvin would learn exactly what happens when you underestimate a quiet wife with a very, very long memory. The annual Investors' Gala coincidentally fell on the same night as our anniversary party. Melvin had combined the events, eager to show off his new future to everyone who mattered in our social circle. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a red dress that cost more than Brianna's monthly salary. The ballroom fell silent as I walked in. Darling, Melvin's voice was tight, we weren't sure you'd come. And miss this? I smiled, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Never. Summer appeared at my elbow. You look recovered. Amazing what a few days of clarity can do. Melvin took the stage, tapping his glass for attention. Friends, investors, family, thank you for coming tonight. As you know, we're celebrating multiple occasions. I watched Brianna hover near the stage, practically vibrating with anticipation. First, the Riverside development project is proceeding ahead of schedule. He paused for applause. Second, some of you may have heard rumours about changes in my personal life. Knox appeared beside me. Willow, what's happening? Watch, I whispered. The truth is, Melvin continued, sometimes we must make difficult choices for growth. My wife's instability has unfortunately affected our business relationships. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd, but tonight marks a new chapter, with Brianna by my side. Actually, I cut in, my voice carrying across the room. "I'd like to make an announcement of my own." "Willow," he warned, "don't make a scene." I walked to the stage, my heels clicking against the marble floor. "Ladies and gentlemen, my husband speaks of instability. Let's talk about that." Ernest and Levi emerged from the crowd, carrying folders. "What's this?" Melvin demanded. "The audit findings," I said sweetly. "Would you like to explain the offshore accounts? Or shall I?" The colour drained from his face. "Perhaps Brianna can explain," I continued, "since they're in her name." Brianna started backing away from the stage. "Or we could discuss the unauthorised loans." I turned to face the investors. "The ones he took out using my forged signatures?" "She's lying," Melvin sputtered. "Security!" "They don't work for you anymore," I said. "None of them do. Check your phone." He pulled out his phone, scrolling frantically. "You'll find the company ownership has been restructured." I nodded to Ernest, who began distributing documents to the board members. "Along with all associated properties and intellectual property rights." "You can't do this," Summer shrieked. "I already have." I turned back to the stunned crowd. My husband called me unstable. What he meant was that I finally stopped being stable enough to ignore his fraud. Knox stepped forward. "The Riverside Project?" "Built on stolen money and forged permits," Levi confirmed. "The SEC has been notified." "This is ridiculous," Melvin laughed desperately. "I built this company." "No," I said quietly. "We built it, and then you tried to steal it." Brianna suddenly bolted for the door. 2 SEC agents stepped out of the shadows to block her path. "The company is mine now," I continued, "along with everything else. The house, the cars, the art collection, all legally transferred with your signature. You really should read what you're signing, darling." Harmony rushed to her brother's side. "Our lawyers will—" "Do nothing," Ernest interrupted. "Everything was done legally. Your brother's fraud, however." The SEC agents were moving through the crowd now, collecting evidence and taking statements. "You said I was nothing without you," I said to Melvin, who stood frozen on stage. "I made sure that's all you'd have left. Nothing." "Willow, please," he reached for me. "We can talk about this." I stepped back. "We're done talking. Check your email. My lawyers will be in touch." As I turned to leave, Summer grabbed my arm. "You ungrateful little—" "Careful," I warned. "The trust that owns your house? I control that now too. Mary says hello, by the way." The ballroom erupted into chaos behind me as I walked out. Investors shouting about lawsuits, Brianna crying as agents questioned her, Melvin's family trying desperately to maintain control. Knox followed me to the door. "How long have you been planning this?" "Long enough." I handed him my champagne glass. "Thank you for being a good friend." "Will you be okay?" I looked back at the scene, my husband of 10 years, watching his carefully constructed world crumble, finally understanding what it meant to lose everything. "I'm better than okay," I said. "I'm free." Outside, Ernest waited by his car. "That was quite a show." "It's not over," I replied, "but phase 1 is complete." "Where to now?" I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Home, my home, the one he can't enter anymore. The night air was cool on my skin as we drove away, leaving behind the sound of sirens approaching the gala. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I was more than happy to assist. The morning after the gala, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News outlets, investors, old friends, everyone wanted a statement. I turned it off and watched the movers pack up the last of Melvin's things. "Where should we deliver these?" the head mover asked. "His mother's house," I replied. "They always wanted him to move back home." Ernest arrived with coffee and the morning papers. "Your front page news. Business empire crumbles amid fraud allegations," I read aloud. They spelled my name right at least. "Melvin's been served with multiple lawsuits," Ernest said, settling into my kitchen chair. The investors are out for blood. And Brianna, singing like a canary to the SEC. He smiled. Turns out she kept receipts. My doorbell rang. It was Knox. "You look terrible," I said, letting him in. "Yeah, well, I spent all night answering questions from federal agents." He collapsed onto my couch. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" He was quiet for a moment. "Probably not. We all bought his act." "Speaking of acts," Ernest interrupted, checking his phone, "Harmony's outside the gate demanding entry." I pulled up the security camera feed. Melvin's sister was indeed there, looking considerably less polished than usual. "Let her in," I said. "This should be interesting." Harmony burst into my living room minutes later, waving papers. "You evil, calculating witch! Good morning to you too. The trust fund, you can't just cut us off." She threw the papers at me. "That money belongs to our family." "Actually," I picked up the scattered documents, "it belongs to whoever controls the trust, which is now me, thanks to Mary." "We'll fight this," she threatened. "With what money?" I asked sweetly. "Your accounts are frozen pending the fraud investigation. Your credit cards are maxed out. And that divorce settlement you've been living on?" I shrugged. "The payments stopped this morning." Harmony's face crumpled. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you all thought I was nothing, just the quiet wife who should be grateful for the scraps from your table." I stood up. "How's it feel to be on the other side?" After she left, Knox whistled low. "Remind me never to cross you." My phone buzzed again. Summer this time. I let it go to voicemail. "Mrs. Kent," her message dripped with venom, "you've turned our blood into strangers. I hope you're satisfied with destroying this family." I deleted the message and turned to Ernest. "How's the media strategy?" "Press release goes out in an hour. Your statement about discovering financial irregularities, trying to handle it privately, being forced to take action." He handed me the draft. "You come off looking like the responsible party who had no choice." "Because that's exactly what happened," Knox added. Later that afternoon, I visited my old office, now mine again. Brianna's desk was empty, her personal items gone. "She left this for you," my assistant said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a letter. "I never meant for it to go this far. He promised me everything, just like he promised you. I'm sorry." I dropped the letter in the shredder. Levi called with updates. "Melvin's trying to access emergency funds, but everything's locked down. He showed up at 3 different banks today." "And the offshore accounts?" "Frozen. He's basically running on whatever cash he had in his wallet." That evening, I walked through my house one last time before the renovations began. Every room held the memories. Dinner parties where I'd been talked over, holidays where I'd been belittled, quiet moments where I'd planned my revenge. My phone buzzed with a text from Melvin. "Please, we need to talk. I'll explain everything." I typed back, "Talk to my lawyers." Another buzz. Mary this time. "Saw the news. You okay?" "Better than okay," I replied. "Having dinner tomorrow. Bring wine, the expensive kind you can actually afford now." Ernest found me in the study, staring at old photos. "You won," he said quietly, "but you also burned every bridge. Are you ready for what comes next?" I picked up a picture from my wedding day, all those smiling faces, all those hidden agendas. "I didn't burn the bridges," I said, dropping the photo in a box marked "Donate." "I demolished the foundations they stood on." "And now?" "Now." I looked around the room that had witnessed so many quiet humiliations. "Now I rebuild, but this time everything will be in my name." Outside, I could hear reporters still camped at the gate, hungry for more details about the scandal. Let them wait. The best revenge stories, after all, take time to fully unfold, and this one was far from over. The doorbell chimed as I finished unpacking the last box in my new penthouse office. Mary stood in the doorway, holding a newspaper. "Have you seen this?" She tossed it on my desk. The headline read, "Former business titan pleads guilty to fraud charges." "Melvin always did hate Prison Orange," I said, pouring us both coffee. "Brianna took a plea deal," Mary added, settling into a chair. 5 years probation in exchange for testimony. And the Kents. Summer's selling their house. Harmony's moving in with her ex-husband. Mary smiled. "Karma's been busy." My phone buzzed. Knox sending a photo from the courthouse steps. Melvin being led away in handcuffs, his designer suit replaced by standard-issue clothing. "You should frame that," Mary suggested. "No, I deleted the photo. I'm done keeping souvenirs." The intercom buzzed. "Miss Perkins, your 9 o'clock is here." "Send them in." 3 women entered, all wearing wedding rings, all carrying folders. "Thank you for meeting with us," the first one said. "After reading about your story, you want to know if your husbands are stealing from you," I finished. They nodded. "That's why I started this consulting firm," I said, gesturing for them to sit, "to help women protect themselves legally and financially." "Can you really help?" the youngest asked. "That's why she has me," Ernest said, walking in with his signature leather briefcase. "Sorry I'm late. Court ran long." As Ernest began explaining their legal options, I stepped out onto my private balcony. The city sprawled below, full of possibilities I'd never seen when I was just Melvin's wife. Mary followed me out. "You've built something good here." "We've built something good," I corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." "About that," she hesitated. "I'm thinking of joining the firm, officially. My accounting skills could help." I hugged her, our first real hug in years. "Welcome aboard." Back inside, Ernest was finishing up with the clients. After they left, he lingered. "Dinner tonight?" he asked, "to celebrate the guilty plea?" "Not to celebrate that," I said, "but yes to dinner." Whatever was growing between Ernest and me was slow, careful, nothing like the whirlwind that swept me into Melvin's world. We were both too scarred for rushing. My assistant brought in the afternoon mail. Among the letters was a cream envelope, Summer's distinctive stationery. "Dear Willow," it read, "you've won completely. But know this, you're alone now. No family, no connections, no social circle. Was it worth it?" I picked up my phone and took a photo of the letter, sending it to Mary with the caption, "Lunch with my sister tomorrow." Her reply was instant. "Only if you're buying, Ms. CEO." The intercom buzzed again. "Miss Perkins, Levi's here with the quarterly reports." "Send him in." I turned to Ernest. "Stay for this. We're launching the Women's Financial Literacy Program." He smiled. "Wouldn't miss it." Levi spread the reports across my conference table. Profits are up 200% since the rebranding. The waiting list for consultations is 3 months long. "Good," I said. "More women learning to protect themselves." "Speaking of protection," Ernest added, "the trust fund reforms you proposed. The legislature's voting next month." I looked around my office. At Mary reviewing spreadsheets, Ernest organising case files, Levi plotting growth charts. This was my family now, my real family. The sun was setting when everyone finally left. I stood at my window, watching the city lights flicker on. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Knox. "Heard Melvin's going away for 10 years minimum. You okay?" I thought about Summer's letter, about being alone, about the women in my office today, seeking help, about Mary coming back into my life, about Ernest's patient understanding. "Better than okay," I replied. "I'm exactly where I should be." On my desk, a small plaque caught the fading light. It was my first corporate award given last month. The inscription read, "For empowering women to reclaim their financial freedom." They tried to write me off as a quiet wife. What they forgot is that even quiet storms level cities, and I only needed one night to remind him I was never his to silence. I picked up my coat and turned off the lights. Ernest would be waiting downstairs. Mary wanted brunch plans for Sunday. The women from this morning needed follow-up calls. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Every decision, every consequence, every victory, mine. And that was worth everything.